Hey guys, recorded this video twice already. We had some electricity um, outage here with a possible tornado. But anyway, didn't really do much trading today. The only time I really turned on my phone was in the morning, around 1 o'clock this afternoon, and then late in the day just to check on some things. But kind of found it funny that I thought SPXY would hit the 255s, but I also knew we could have 259s. I just didn't know which one would come first. I felt like 255 would come first. I think we dipped in there pre-market, maybe after hours on Friday. And then as we climb towards 259 today, if I was trading, I probably would have bought UVXY up around 259. I kind of felt like a couple people emailed me what they thought about SPXY, and I thought it was going to roll over late in the day. And we did roll over. So I want to look at IBB here. IBB is kind of interesting again. We failed at this 300 plus multiple times. Either we got close or we pushed through it and just dropped, right? One, two. Actually, this is a 2-year chart, so I don't know that we've had any since the big drop. But a few times we've gotten up there and failed, and we couldn't get any follow through. And then they usually been followed by fairly decent pullback. So close to 300 here, but then we dropped down and got to 277, close to 300 here. Then this big pullback got us down to the 240s, I believe. And then we got pushed through. I really thought this one was going to get legs, and then we dropped down. But the drop now hasn't been that significant. In fact, this little area here kind of head faked me out. But if I use my rules of, and we can zoom in on this too, 3 days under before I really panic, I probably would have been in IBB, but I had some other longs. So the interesting thing about IBB right now that I want to focus on is the 16 SMA, which I'm using instead of a 20. I think it's a little bit tighter and a little bit better. And the 8 EMA, which is your exponential moving average, or shorter moving averages. So every time we've come into this 300 or 295 plus area, the 290 plus area, we've had a purple above the yellow. So the short's been above the long. Here we are coming into it again, short above the long. Here we are coming again, short above the yellow, long. This time we're coming into it kind of a little bit of an off day today. I mean, almost an engulfing candle, but not one that I would consider. We did make a lower low and I think a higher high, but just barely. It's kind of an odd day. It's actually a slightly bullish close, believe it or not, even though it's a red candle. But so here we do. We have our first crossover. There hasn't been many times that the short term has crossed over the longer term without at least 7 or 8 trade days of the upside. We prefer to see a few green days on the crossover. We saw some green here on the crossover. This is the shortest period of a crossover without a actually, no, we didn't cross over there, so let's forget that. So cross over the downside would have kept you out. Cross over the upside. We did have one green here followed by a red, but then we took off. Cross over the upside, took off. Cross over downside would have got you out. Cross over the upside, you have 8 or 9 days of at least some upward and sideways action here. So we do have a crossover here, and today's the day it crossed over, regardless of this candle. So interesting action in IBB here. Recovery from the lower area, had some strength. We didn't close at the lower half. We closed right at the middle. So IBB is interesting here. I showed you a chart the other day, and I'll show you. So this is going to be a little bit off because this chart's smaller, so it might cut out the ETF name. We all know IBB. So, when I'm drawing my charts, traditional technical analysis would have you draw from down here, then maybe that's a fat line. I'm going to shrink that down, but where are you drawing your lines on traditional technical analysis? You're going to be all over the place with this one. Horizontals. You're not going to get much here. But the technical analysis that I do is running from tops of candles across, and then trying to see directional changes. If we go from our first directional low change, it's right in here. So when I draw my line, you would think that this area right here, since it's lower than this area here, this candle right here, you would draw your line through there, but you're not. When you draw it, you want to pull it down, and then as you bring it up, what's the first one that hits? Well, the first one that hits is right in here. It didn't hit right here, even though this one's lower. In that time frame, this is the first one that hits, and that brings right across to here. So there's an argument to be made that from our low pivot directional change, we do have some type of a short-term bottom in here. I do like the power of this move. Last time we saw power like that, obviously we had a big gap here. We had some pretty good power off the trend line here. But we have 3 big green candles in a row. Obviously this was closed out on Friday, so we do have a little bit of a down day. Nothing to panic about, but You can see how the 16 is a little bit cleaner than the 20 if you switch over if you're at home. So another thing I want to look at, and really quick in closing, but here's your trend line here that we're going to be looking at. A little bit of a descending trend line, kind of horizontal on the bottom, 2 days under, back above, and then with some power. So here's our 2-year daily, and interesting thing is every time we've come into this 300 area, we've had purple above yellow, short-term EMA, exponential above the yellow SMA. Every time we've come into this 300, we've had the the crossover go to the other way. This time we're coming in and the purple's under the yellow. So, we're coming into an area that we've had multiple failures at between 290 and 300. But each time we've come into a prior, we've had a purple shorter term EMA above the SMA, which led us, into a little bit of a vulnerable position. This time it's reversed. We're having some power coming in, and we're getting a crossover to the upside. So that gives us a lot of wiggle room on the top end if we do cross over here. Maybe we'll get that 310, 312 area that we're talking about. But this definitely looks interesting here. I did look at it during the day when it got down to my entry would have been actually around 292.10 to 292.40. So I would not have caught the low of the day, but I would have been not shaken out unless we crossed below the 290 or the 16 SMA. So I would have stayed in my trade even though I was at a loss at one point. So real quick, looking at our 2-year weekly, starting to trend a little bit higher here. Even though we have these crazy moves that kind of shake you out, we're kind of gravitating towards that top end there. And here's our only negative is that we do have a short-term MACD still below the bullish end of it. So, we'd like to see that crossover. We're so tight in here. So really tight in there. So we've had tight positions here before we, proceeding a bigger move to the upside. So nothing too concerning. Obviously, we'd like to get ahead of the crossover anyway. So IBB, in my opinion, is looking kind of interesting here. And I would say that the potential crossover that we could get is probably going to test not the 303 area again. If we do get a push higher, market pending, the macro market's obviously, running the show here. And, when I looked at SVXY and the market here today, I kind of feel like it's, I don't know, we've seen it kind of top out and then pull back a little bit and then rocket forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do that again. We kind of feel like we're toppy here. We need to be aware that the IWM today looked pretty weak, and we have this back and forth little cat and mouse game. But if we do get another push here, I think we're coming from an area of a little bit more strength and consolidation than we've seen in the past on the IBB, and that this push might be the one that finally gets us up to the 312, the 315 area that we see before we have the pivotal breakdown, probably around the 318 area. I'm not sure we get to 318, but I would assume that maybe the 310 to 315 would be interesting if we get above that descending top line that we talked about.